Okay, and welcome to this video, guys. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you watching. What we're going to talk about today is how to close Airbnb co-host contracts using data. My name is John Bianchi. I am the Airbnb data guy, and what I want to do today is I want to help you get more contracts, so more Airbnb listings using data and we're going to be using the co-host model. Okay, so let me summarize that again. We're going to use data to get more Airbnb listings, and those Airbnb listings are going to be set up as co-host contracts. And I'll explain why we want to do co-host contracts. Okay, so the objective here is we want to acquire new Airbnb listings without putting any money down or taking any risk. What? How do you do that? There's no way. There is a way. And it is possible. And there's thousands of people who are doing it right now. It's usually something that, so for myself, it took me about probably about a year and a half of doing Airbnb, maybe even close to 2 years actually, now I think about it, before I was able to feel confident enough or understand what I was doing well enough to be able to put all the risk on somebody else rather than myself and still make it work for them, right? So I'm going to teach you how you can put the risk on somebody else and make them put up the money, and it actually makes sense for you and that person, okay? Now, to understand everything that we're going to talk about in this video, you're going to end up needing to watch the previous videos that I've made. Luckily, this is only the fourth video that I've ever made, so you can jump back to the previous ones and see the content that you need to be able to see to know what to do. I will refer back to which ones you need to watch as I go through, okay? So let's scroll down. Now, I need to explain a couple of things here before we can actually get started. So there's three ways to acquire an Airbnb listing. The first one is to buy real estate. Super simple. Not super simple to buy real estate. Super simple understanding of, yeah, obviously if I own real estate, I can open it up an Airbnb. It's my own place. I can do whatever I want, right? So that in that sense, it's everyone seems to understand what I mean by that, right? So when you buy real estate, there is significant upfront work, right? So you got to find a listing. You have to actually have a lot of knowledge before you can even get started, because you have to make sure that you're not buying bad real estate. You want to buy good real estate. You want to get the right price. You got to understand all your numbers. You have to, then the upfront work is actually, aside from learning everything, is actually going out there and trying to find a good property and whatnot. Plus, you need a bunch of money to get things started, because you need to put a down payment down on the property to be able to get it, unless you're pulling investor's money. But still, there's money required to actually get things going. And in this scenario, you're taking on a lot of risk, and you're taking on a lot of risk because you're signing, probably a 30-year mortgage when you do this, and that's a lot of risk, right? So out of all these scenarios, buying real estate is definitely going to be the highest risk, the most amount of upfront work, the most amount of money, and definitely the most amount of knowledge required. And if you're going in it without any knowledge, you're probably going to lose a lot of money. Anyways, the next one here, the next way to acquire an Airbnb listing is to go the rental arbitrage route. Now, rental arbitrage is the one that's probably talked about the most out of all of the, it's the most common one that people are teaching and promoting and things like that. And I strongly believe that the reason the reason why people push it so much right now is because it's easy. It is so easy to get a rental arbitrage contract in comparison to buying a good piece of real estate or getting a landlord to co-host with you. The rental arbitrage model is easy to close a landlord. You know why? Because you're taking all the risk, right? Everything is on you. So there's upfront work where you have to understand what the rental arbitrage model is. You're going to be paying rent just to summarize for those who don't know. If you're watching this video, you probably do. But rental arbitrage is when you pay the landlord rent, and you get the control of the property, and you tell them that you're going to do Airbnb on the property, and then you turn it into a full-time Airbnb and rent it out like a hotel, like an Airbnb, right? So it's rental arbitrage. You're making more over your rent that you're paying the landlord, hopefully. I do have videos that explain how to go about rental arbitrage. Those are the first ones to start off with, okay? So there's some upfront work that is required. You definitely need money to get started, because there's first and last or deposit, rent, right? Plus you have all of the furniture and all that stuff, and you need knowledge. You want to make sure that you're getting the right place, otherwise you're going to lose a lot of money, just like real estate, right? Because you're taking on that risk. So there is risk that you are taking on, okay? Because you're signing a lease, and even if the lease is $1,000 a month, you're taking on $12,000 of risk, right? Now, The third one here is co-hosting. So the third way to get a new Airbnb listing is to co-host. And co-hosting is when you manage the Airbnb listing for somebody else who owns it, right? So that person could be a landlord who owns the property. It could be somebody who does rental arbitrage. But regardless, you're going to be coming in and you're going to be doing 100% of the work, and you're taking a percentage for the your work, right? So you're just taking a percentage of however well that property does. And so in this scenario, there is upfront work. Okay, you have to be able to find the landlords to you know, you have to find the landlords to be able to co-host for them. You also need to understand how to be a good Airbnber, right? Airbnb host. And then you need knowledge required up front as well, like I just said, right? So there's upfront work. The upfront work is acquiring the knowledge, but then also acquiring the landlords, right? Finding them and stuff like that. However, you don't take on any risk, okay? You don't take on any risk because you are, the landlord is going to be the one covering all of the bills. And so if the property makes $10,000 in 1 month, you're taking a percentage of that, and the landlord's walking away with the rest, and he's going to be super happy. But if the property only makes $1,000 in that month, you're still getting your percentage. You're going to make a lot less, but you're still making money, and the landlord's going to have to cover all the bills that he had to pay, and he's going to end up losing money that month, depending on how much the expenses are for the entire month, right? So you're not really taking on any risk here, right? The landlord is. He's got to cover the bills. You don't. You're just managing it for him and taking a percentage for doing the work. It's like a job in a sense, in that kind of way, right? So what we're going to talk about today is how to acquire a co-host contract using data. And the reason we want to do this is because it's difficult to get these co-host contracts. It really is. If you don't know what you're doing, you can't talk a landlord into taking on risk, right? I can't go to somebody when I don't know what the hell I'm doing and go up to them and say, hey, you want to not get your rent, and do you want to take on the utility bills, and you want to take on the cleaning bills, and you want to take on the internet and the cable and all those things, and also, do you want to furnish this entire property for about $5,000? Yeah, and then so you're going to take on all that risk, and then I'll turn it into an Airbnb, right? Try going to a landlord and just like seeing the reaction to you telling them, yeah, you take all the risk, I'm not going to. Right? So how do we get past that to get a landlord to sign a contract, right? And what I'm going to show you is how we use data to do that, right? Now, let's get a little bit further down. The next thing so I do want to mention that you got to use the numbers to make the sale, okay? So this is obviously where I'm getting to. Landlords are risk takers. However, they're calculated risk takers. So one of the largest misconceptions in all of the world, I don't know, maybe not, but anyways, everyone believes that, you know, entrepreneurs are major risk takers. They're not. They're very, very calculated risk takers. Landlords, which are real estate owners, real estate investors, they're very calculated risk takers. They know what they're getting themselves into before they take on that liability, and they only take on the liability because they calculate everything, right? Landlords speak numbers. Don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but what I'm trying to say is that landlords understand numbers better than anything. You can say, I'm going to be the greatest host in the entire world, and I know every little thing about marketing, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter. You got to know your numbers, because numbers sell landlords, all right? The landlords are just real estate investors. They're somebody who made a decision to buy a piece of property that they're going to rent out as a full-time, you know, annual rental, and they only did it because all the numbers made sense. So we need to make the numbers make sense for the landlord, and we're going to do that using data. Airbnb data guy. All right. So steps. Let's go steps. Step 1: use AirDNA to record all properties in a given area. For the sake of this video and the time, because I tend to ramble and take a little bit too long, there are 2 other videos. The very first video I ever put up teaches you how to use record all of the properties in a given area off of AirDNA. I teach you how to do it. Go back and watch that video. What you'll end up with is something that kind of looks like this. It's going to give you all the information that you need. I talk about it in every single video. You got to go to the first one to learn exactly how to do this, okay? So that's, boom, done. Now, step 2, run a financial report to figure out the max rent. This allows you to know which landlords to approach. Once again, I already made a video about this. I'm not going to do it again in this video. Go back, watch the other one. What you're going to end up with is something that looks like this, and you're going to see this from the previous videos, right? It's going to give me, this number here is going to come from my tracking. It's the average, And then this is me working all the numbers backwards for the landlord to make sure that he's going to make more money than he would from his normal rent, from his normal annual tenant. And then once I know that, I know my max rent, which is this number right here, and I can use that to go onto Zillow and Craigslist and Domo and PadMapper and all the different places that are out there to be able to figure out which landlords are, in this $3,000 range and have vacant properties. And those are the people that I'm going to approach. Once again, there's another video out there. You can use that video to figure that out. What we're going to teach today is how to close Airbnb co-host contracts using data. So you've recorded all the data. Now you've figured out you work the numbers backwards with that data. And now we're going to get to the next step, which is create a property evaluation report. Now, one thing I didn't write in here, and I'm realizing it right now, is that you do not create a property evaluation report until you have met with a landlord and you have the landlord's actually interested in potentially doing Airbnb, okay? So listen, so I just need you to listen here. I don't have it written down, and I'm realizing that I wish I did write it down, but the steps prior to getting to this point of the property evaluation, to having to build one of these, for me anyways, is I figure out all of this information. Then I figure out what the max rent is. Then what I do is I go to the Zillow and Craigslist and I find those landlords that are in this range. Okay, so if they're in this range, I go and then I approach them. I try and sell them on Airbnb, turning their home into an Airbnb. Now, when I approach them, I'm not going and giving them an entire property evaluation report because these take about an hour to make. What I'm telling them is I'm simply saying, like, the reason I'm approaching you is because I've done a crazy amount of research and data research to figure out which properties are going to be the absolute best and which ones will make landlords more money, and your property is one of them. And that's why I'm standing in front of you right now talking to you about this property, right? Because your property has the potential to make more money. Now, I don't know the exact number. I'd have to run that. I'll put together an entire property evaluation report for you, and then that report will show you exactly how much you're going to make, what all your additional expenses are going to be, and what you're going to walk away with. That'll be your actual profit, and that's the money that you use. That profit will be the additional money you'll make over the Airbnb expenses, right? So that's what I say to a landlord. I tell them, like, I'm only here because your property will do well. So once I peak, I'm making sure that I'm going to the right landlords in the first place, right? I'm not going to say this to somebody where I haven't run the data and I don't know if their property is going to make more money, because what's the point, right? I'm not going to then go back and realize, oh yeah, that property is not going to make you any money. I'm going to first make sure that the property will make a money. Then I'm going to get down to the exact, crossing the T's and dotting the I's to prove that yes, this property will do well, and that's what the property evaluation is. So I want to pique the landlord's interest first to get them like, okay, I'm interested. I want to see the numbers, right? That's pretty much what I want to get the landlord to say to me. And once he says that, and I go, okay, let me put the report together, and then we'll get together again, and I'll walk you through the report. You really want to be with the landlord when you walk them through the report, because it can be kind of confusing if you don't. And they're going to have a whack load of questions. And so I just like to either do a Zoom call where I share my screen with them. Regardless, that's when you want to create a property evaluation report. Okay, now let's get into it. What is a property evaluation report? Well, here's an example of a property evaluation report. Note, it's not pretty. Doesn't matter, guys. Don't have to make everything pretty. It still works. Okay, you can make it prettier and feel good about yourself, but I don't care about doing that. So, what we got, the first section part of it here, it's you'll see, does this look familiar? Yeah, I saw in the other video. Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing as what I put up over here. I just put all together for them. Okay, so let me walk you through this, and it's sort of a psychology thing that I do of what I want the landlords to see as we go through. Okay, so first off, I like to add in the owner's name, the size of the unit, the area, some notes on that. If there's a link to the property on like Zillow, Craigslist, something, then I add in notes. So here's the difference between these two. The notes is pretty much talking about, like, this is why this property will do good. It's got a good backyard. It's got things like this. Then my personal opinion is where I sort of state, like, the characteristics of the property has a lot of character to it. If it has the stained glass windows that you see in there will make it it's something that's not natural or not normal for a lot of people that live in America to have stained glass windows in their property. And so, that's something that's going to really stand out. So this is more of like the standard stuff that makes a home good. Its location, what's nearby, the stuff like that. Whereas this is more like really in depth, where I'm like, I'm excited about this property because of X, Y, Z, right? I'm excited because my experience has shown me that this is blah, 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 whatever it may be, okay? So that's what I write. I like to write all that stuff in there, and just kind of, it lets the landlord know what I'm thinking, and this is actually kind of where I sell them, really, to be honest. This is the stuff that I write in here that I want them to read and be like, ooh, I see why my property has value now because I just read this little piece. Anyways, so the next piece here, obviously be truthful when you do that. I don't know. I feel the need to say that. This is, when I talk about sales, I'm not trying to bullshit them. You just give them the actual reasons, because you're going to say it to them in person anyways, but just write it in here so that they can read it. Okay. Anyways, next little thing. So comparable properties. This part here is, now mine's going to be different than yours because I pull my data in a different way. I pay way more money for it than you guys, than what I'm teaching you to do. But essentially what's going to come here is comps, so comparable properties, right? And what you would want to do is you want to go to your AirDNA tracking sheet. Once again, you learned how to do this in the previous videos. And you take this information, so you take that little bar right there, then you take all the properties that are comparable to this person's property, right? And you put them in here, okay? So that the landlord can, when he's reviewing this, can see, oh, okay, here's in this scenario, the revenue is this, the occupancy is this, the nightly rate's this, number of guests, bedrooms. He can just see the comparables, right? And obviously you want to also have a link to that Airbnb. I teach you how to do that in previous videos. So then the landlord can review this and say, oh, okay, this is what I can expect, right? So in my things, I've got, they've got the links to the actual properties. They can see them. They have every piece of information they could possibly want to be able to figure out if that property is actually comparable or not. Now, naturally, the landlord doesn't know everything about Airbnb, and so he doesn't know why this property compares with that property. It's different than real estate, okay? The comps are always going to be different than real estate. What I mean by that is, like, if you're a real estate investor, you can't use the same logic when doing real estate investing for comparables that you would when it comes to Airbnb listings comparables, okay? So what I do in here is I write my notes on the comps. So this line here is this comparable here, and then I write my notes as to why I think this one is comparable, what is comparable about it. I'll make a whole other video about how I figure out the comps and what I compare and why I compare and things like that, okay? So I just write everything in here so the landlord can review it and read it. Now, the next step is to get to here. Now, this is something that I've already explained in another video, and honestly, guys, I just take what I did over here. It's the same process, same logic. Watch the whole video. I walk you through everything. And I plug it in here for the landlord to walk through the numbers himself. This is the piece that matters, okay? This stuff here, it's kind of like you just got to warm them up, like, hey, this is some other stuff that you need to know about your property, some information you need to know. Here the stuff, this is how I got to this number here, your property projection, right? So they're going to see all this, and they're probably going to skim through it like, oh, okay, and then they're going to come here and they're going to be like, all right, here we go. This is the stuff, right? This is the meat and potatoes that they want to see. So I'm not going to walk through all this and explain again how this worked, because you'll see it in the other video. But essentially, learn how to do it how I explained it in the other video. Learn how to walk a landlord through all these numbers here, so that when they look at this and they understand, I'm going to make $14,000 more than the rent that I'm asking. So I'll make my $37,000 from the rent that I would have received plus an additional $14,000. So in this scenario, for this landlord, this is a real property. I closed the landlord. We opened up his home 2 weeks ago, and in this scenario, he has the potential to make an additional $14,000, right? So once he saw this number, it was a pretty easy sale. It's a very easy sale when you go to a landlord and say, hey, you're going to make $14,000 more. It's a harder sale when you go to him and say, hey, sir, would you like to do co-host and take on all of the risk and put all of the furniture up and do everything that you need to, I'm not going to take any of the risk. I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know why your property is going to be better, but I think you should just take on all the risk. Never going to happen in a billion years, billion years. But if you go to them and say, hey, here's everything about your property that you need to know, plus I've ran all the numbers backwards, and these are, what I expect all the expenses to be, and you're going to end up walking away with an additional $14,000, how does that sound to you? They're going to go, that makes sense, right? Maybe they're going to have obviously more questions, but eventually in the back of their head, they're going to go, really, $14,000? How, that seems pretty crazy, right? But they realize, like, oh, all the information is here. The data proves it. The data is saying that these guys, this is actually what my property can do. I can tell based off of all this information. So why wouldn't it do this, right? And once they see all this, they just need to believe that you know what you're doing as an Airbnb host. And to be honest, the Airbnb hosting side of it, I think is super, super easy. Super fucking easy. So you just, that part, it's like I just tell landlords, like, guys, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for 2 years. It's just a matter of plugging you into my system. There's nothing complex about the Airbnb, that side of things. We know what we've been doing. We've been doing it with other properties. We can just work them and put them in, and this is what your property is expected to do. Here's proof from my other landlords of how well they did. Now, that is what you can say if you've been doing Airbnb and been doing rental arbitrage and stuff like that, right? And just a quick thing, if you've been doing rental arbitrage, take your rental arbitrage property, run it as if it was a property management company, property management deal or co-host deal, and use that as proof to any new landlords that you talk to saying that you can do property management, okay? So anyways, but if you have no experience, just tell them that you've taken courses. Say you've watched Sean, I don't know how to say your last name, Sean, from Automated Airbnb, Airbnb Automated, which is on YouTube. He's got a million videos that you can watch. You guys are absolutely amazing. So much content that will teach you exactly how to run an Airbnb business. Or you can go to Eric Mueller from Co-Host Mastery, the Profit Club. He's got an amazing course that teaches you absolutely everything you need. There's James Fick. James Fick, I probably didn't say his last name right. Canadian boy, just like me. He also has a course that teaches you everything you need to know. There are so many people out there that teach you everything you need to know. Brian Page is another one. These guys, they have these courses out here. Some are strong, courses are stronger than the other. But you just tell the landlord, like, hey, I ran all these numbers. This is what you can do. Now, I don't have any properties just yet, but I've gone through this course and this course, and I've watched these videos, and then just start talking to them about everything you know, right? And then they'll start to believe you, and you're going to get somebody who will sign a contract with this. You can literally get into you can get a landlord to sign a contract without putting up any money. That is huge. You don't have to put up any money. You also don't take on any risk, and you learn how to be an Airbnb host. And this is everything that you would do here to be able to do that, right? This is how you're going to walk through. I apologize, this video is getting long, but I do want to show you one more thing. Now, this guy here, this 4-bedroom, 3-bath, okay, is actually 2 units in one building that we combined, right? Now, this is where the data rules and wins, okay? So, as you can see here, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-bedroom, 1-bath. You combine that, you get a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, right? So here, the 2-bedroom, 2-bath, I did the exact same thing for him, walked him all the way through, and I want to read this note real quick. I couldn't find a unit of similar quality, and all the comps are nicer than this one. Therefore, I would expect slightly less, right? So I'm being very, very honest. You have to be, because he's going to read check out all the comps as well and be like, that doesn't compare with my properties, right? Regardless of what he knows. So I tell him he's probably going to be a little bit less, right? And what you can see here is the additional profit would be $3,000 if he could make 41, but I'm telling you he's going to be a little bit less. So this is $3,000, so he probably wouldn't have made any additional profit here, right? With the 2-bedroom, 2-bath in this area, because of the quality of his home didn't match these ones, and it needed to be able to get in the revenue that we needed to actually make him additional profit, right? And it's also very hard to sell a landlord when they're only going to make an additional $3,000 because they're taking on all the risk. So this would be a tough sell alone by itself. If I was just trying to get the 2-bedroom, 2-bath, it would have been, I probably wouldn't have got this sale, right? And if the other unit was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and just to save time, this one would have lost $4,000. So he would have lost money. He would have made $4,000 less than what he actually wanted to make, because it's expensive to run an Airbnb. The expenses don't really go away. So here you have he would have lost about $4,000. So if these were individual, he would have ended up losing money, right? But when you combine it, because 4-bedroom, 3-baths do amazing in this area, which is why I approached him in the first place. 4-bedroom, 3-baths do so well because they're just the type of property that they are, and I'm not going to get into everything just yet, but it had the potential to make more money than these two would have been able to do alone. And then you get the grand total. Now, just to note, these if they were individual, I realize that the expenses here for these guys are the same. Like, there would need to be, this internet is now split between both units, right? So it's half the cost. the same thing with these expenses as well and the maintenance, right? It's combined into one, which makes it more favorable, which is another bonus of it, right? So, anyways, this is the how I was able to take his 2 units, make it into 1 unit, show him he's going to make about additional $14,000, and set him up. And we just got that one opened. He paid for all of the furniture. He actually did extra work on the home to get it completely set up, and we just opened it 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, we opened it during the coronavirus crisis, but we're going to make it through it, and he's going to be happy in the long run. Okay. And so that's how I was able to close this landlord without taking on any additional risk. Um, the next steps, okay? So you have got your property, you create your property valuation. I obviously already said this stuff. So the next thing you do is you'd walk your landlord through the numbers. I already explained that. I walked you through it. I hope it wasn't too complicated. I didn't jump, from one thing to another too many times. But the last step is to let the numbers do the selling. You tell them you know what you're doing, but let the numbers speak for themselves. Be like, this is what it is, right? This is how it is. Like this is the stuff, right? There's other things that you can do to make this, to be able to close the landlord a little bit more. If their additional profit is high enough, right? Their additional profit is up there. Then what you want to do is be like, I'm going to, obviously the landlord should pay for the furniture. Make the landlord pay for the furniture in this scenario if he's going to make $14,000 more. Mind you, I'm showing him right here, I'm going to make $22,000, plus I'm going to take on the cleaning, so I'm going to make $10,000 as well. So I'm going to make $30,000 off this contract. So why shouldn't I pay for the furniture? Because you want him to pay for the furniture, her to pay for the furniture. That's just how it is, right? Why would you want to do that? So tell him that he should. And what I do for my landlords is I tell them I'll source the furniture for you. I'm like, I've done it enough times where I know, where to buy stuff, how to buy stuff. And I'll you buy the furniture, but I'll do the work. And it actually is easier for you to do the work because you're going to do it better than they're going to do it because you actually know what works and what doesn't work, and you have this inside knowledge that they don't have. So I recommend just get them to a good way to do it is say you're going to buy the furniture, but I'll source it and I'll set it up. Cut me a check for $5,000 and I'll put everything together. Cut me a check for $7,000. They're still going to be making more money, right? And so anyways, that's how I would go about the furniture situation, because that's always the question that comes up. Once again, co-host mastery will teach you how to deal with that. That's all the steps, guys. That's what you need to do. Summarize, record all the information using AirDNA, create a financial report to figure out the max rent. I don't know if that's the best thing to call this, but just regardless, figure out the max rent. Then sell the landlord. There should be a little step here. Get the landlord interested. Okay, so you actually want to make that sales. Then you want to create the property valuation report, and that's what's going to sell the landlord. This is the process of walking the landlord through the numbers and let the numbers do the selling. Okay, so that's the summary of how I use data to be able to close Airbnb co-host contracts, which give you no risk. Okay, and no money. The word money is not in this line, but it is in these two. All right, there you go, guys. I hope that was helpful. I have links below where you can reach out to me if you want to do some consulting. I've got some, you can follow me on my pages. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if this is good, if this is useful. Let me know if there's anything you want to ask me, put in the comments. I'm sure all 5 people who watch this will be thrilled to know this information. All right, talk to you.